Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Connecticut Paid Leave Spotlight. My name is Michael Caesar. I am the General Counsel for the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority. This video will be reviewing how to apply for a private plan. The primary audience for this presentation are employers who are considering using a private plan. However, it may be helpful for other individuals, including insurance carriers, brokers, and anyone else who is involved in private plans, as well as employees whose employers may be considering the private plan option. In this video, we will be walking through how to apply for a new private plan. That process also applies to renewals of your existing private plan for those plans that are reaching the end of their 3-year approval period, as well as plans that would like to modify their existing plan, including a change in the insurance provider. We may touch on some key points around administering your private plan. However, the primary purpose of this video is to assist with the application process. All of this information and more can be found on our website at ctpaidleave.org. Connecticut Paid Leave applies to all covered employers with one or more employees working in Connecticut. Employers may apply to offer a private paid leave plan to their employees as long as it provides the same or better benefits than the state program. If approved, the employer would not participate in the public program for the duration of the approval period. In other words, paid leave claims would become the responsibility of the private plan. However, before that happens, Connecticut Paid Leave must approve the private plan. So let's go over the minimum requirements. First, as noted previously, the benefits must be equal to or better than our public program, including the percentage of employees' wages that are replaced and the duration of paid leave available. It also must cover all available leave reasons. Short-term disability policies will not qualify. The plan must cover all of your employees working for you here in Connecticut. It cannot cover only a subset of your workers in Connecticut, and it must cover existing employees as well as new hires. If the employer is approved for a private plan, employees are not able to individually opt out of your private plan and participate in the state program. Finally, the plan must be approved by a majority vote of employees working in Connecticut. With respect to the costs, if approved for a private plan, contributions from employees would not be sent to the state program. However, employers may continue to deduct contributions from employees' wages in order to cover the legitimate expenses for the private plan. Employee contributions may be lower than the amount required under the state program, but the plan cannot cost your employees more than the state's contribution rate, which as of the date of this recording is 0.5% of wages up to the Social Security contribution and benefit base limit. If the costs of administering the private plan are greater than the state contribution rate, the employer will be responsible for making up the difference. Any monies collected by you or your payroll vendor for the paid leave program must be used for the purpose of providing paid leave benefits for your employees. What does that mean? Basically, any funds collected can only be used to provide paid leave benefits to employees or to pay for the legitimate expenses associated with administering the private plan. Once you have decided that you would like to offer your employees a private paid leave plan instead of the Connecticut Paid Leave public program, there are certain steps you must take before your plan can be approved. What are the steps involved in the application process? First, you will need to decide which type of plan you would like to apply for. There are 2 different types of plans, each of which we will cover in a moment. You will also need to educate your employees about the private plan so that they can vote knowledgeably. You will also need to prepare for and then hold the vote. There are some key items in the voting process that you will need to know, and we will walk through those today. Finally, you can submit your application online via the ctpaidleave.org portal. When choosing a private plan, it is important to understand the differences between the plan types. There are 2 types of plans: a fully insured policy and a self-insured plan with a surety bond. To try to keep this simple, the primary difference is who is responsible for the financial risk of the plan. A fully insured policy is one in which the insurance company administers benefits to your employees on your behalf. This insurance company is also responsible for the financial risk of any paid leave claims. With this type of policy, you will typically pay a monthly, quarterly, or annual premium to the insurance carrier based on a set rate. The same rate applies even if claims are much greater than or lower than were expected for that rate period. Alternatively, a self-insured plan with a surety bond is a plan in which you as the employer are responsible for the financial risk. Under this plan, you may handle the claims process yourself, or you may pay a fee to a third-party administrator to administer the benefits. The costs of claims under the self-insured option will come from the employer. Due to that additional risk, as part of the self-insured plan, a surety bond is necessary. The surety bond becomes payable to the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority if the self-insured plan is unable to administer benefits. The value of the surety bond must be equal to 1 year of estimated contributions from employees based on the contribution rate under the public program. Each year, a new surety bond must be provided covering the value of contributions for the upcoming year. The surety bond protects the authority in the event the plan is terminated and the employees have to join the public program. The surety bond is not the source of funds to pay claims under an active private plan. Many insurance companies may be able to offer both the fully insured policy and the self-insured claims administration options to you. Now that you know this information, I think it may be helpful to mention that if you are choosing a private plan because you think it is easier than participating in the public program, you may find the opposite to be true. With a private plan, you as the employer are agreeing to take on the additional responsibility of maintaining the coverage rather than the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority doing so. You will be responsible for properly notifying your employees and conducting the vote, ensuring that contributions from employees are only used for legitimate paid leave costs, administering the private plan paid leave claims correctly and timely, providing routine annual reports to the authority, and potentially participating in audits of your private plan. While you may be working with an insurance carrier or TPA in order to administer your plan, remember, it is ultimately your responsibility as the employer to remain in compliance with the rules and to ensure the plan provides benefits that are equal to or greater than the public program. Now that you've decided which type of plan you would like to use, you're going to need to educate your employees about what you're trying to do and the plan type that you have chosen. Employees will need to vote on the plan and must have sufficient information about what they are voting on. In order to provide that information, the authority asks that 2 documents be provided to employees prior to the vote: a plain language guide and the policy or plan document. The plain language guide is a summary of the details of the plan in a format that can be understood by all employees. It is necessary, particularly for employees that are not as familiar with insurance contracts or policies. The authority has created a template plain language guide that can be found on our website, ctpaidleave.org. The template contains various sections that must be completed based on the details of your plan, including the applicable benefit percentages, the contribution rate, and the entity that is responsible for administering requests for paid leave. Failure to complete the plain language guide may require a new vote from your employees and a new private plan application. As far as the second requirement, the policy or plan document, there are 2 options depending on the type of plan chosen. For fully insured policies, employees must be provided with the insurance policy that will be used to administer paid leave requests. The authority will allow either the actual policy that will be in force or a draft or sample version of the insurance policy, so long as it provides the necessary details of the plan to your employees. For self-insured plans, you must supply a copy of the plan document that will be used to administer claims under the private plan. The authority has a template version of a plan document on our website, ctpaidleave.org, that can be used, or if you're using a third-party administrator, they may have their own version of the document. Before the vote can be held, employees must be provided with the necessary documents at least 2 weeks prior to the start date of voting. You must also provide instructions to your employees about the voting process. Responses from your employees during the vote must be anonymous for all employees. If an anonymous vote is not possible or reasonable, the authority may grant permission for an employer to hold a vote that is not anonymous. You must submit a written request to the authority prior to the vote, providing good cause for this method, including why an anonymous vote is not reasonable. That request can be sent to the authority via the Contact Us option at ctpaidleave.org. Acceptable options include that there is only a single employee working for you in Connecticut, or if compliance with federal or state law requires an alternative voting method that is not anonymous. Connecticut Paid Leave recommends that you use an electronic voting process to hold your vote, with the understanding that all of your employees need to be able to access it. When you are ready to hold the vote itself must consist of only a single question. Do you approve the company's private plan to provide benefits required by Connecticut Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Act? The only answer should be either yes or no. The vote must be sent to all Connecticut employees, including employees who are currently on leave. In order for the private plan application to be submitted, a majority of Connecticut employees must vote in favor of the plan. A majority means more than 50% of Connecticut workers. It does not mean a majority of individuals who voted. If the vote results in a tie, that will also not be considered a majority. Any employees who are currently working in Connecticut but do not vote will be considered a no vote. For example, if you have 7 employees working in Connecticut, at least 4 employees must vote in favor of the private plan in order for the application to be submitted. If you only have 6 employees working in Connecticut, you will also need to have at least 4 employees voting in favor of the private plan, because 3 is not more than half of the employees. If your organization is divided into separate entities, for example, a parent company with 1 or more subsidiaries, each entity must vote separately based on the employees who report to that particular entity. If a majority of employees have voted in favor of the plan, congratulations. The application can now be submitted to the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority. Hopefully, you have already registered as an employer with the authority. If you need guidance on setting up a ct.gov account, please visit our website, ctpaidleave.org. Within your CTPL account, you should click on the organization for which you are submitting the private plan. As a reminder, if you have multiple related entities, each entity must have a separate application for a private plan. Under the appropriate entity, there should be a private plan tab, under which is the option to request approval. As part of the application process, you will be asked to certify that you followed the necessary steps in the voting process, as well as attach the documents that you provided to employees prior to the vote and the surety bond if the plan is a self-insured plan. If you have an existing private plan and you are filing an application due to a material change in the plan or because the 3-year approval period is expiring, that application should also be submitted as a new application. Please do not attempt to attach a new application to your existing private plan. The authority will review your application and will make a decision based on the information provided. Decisions are sent via email and may be delivered to your junk or spam folders. Please be sure to check those when awaiting a decision from the authority. If your private plan is approved, contributions are due up until the effective date of the private plan. Once your plan is effective, you should stop sending contributions to the authority. Your effective date will occur on a quarterly basis according to the date on which the plan was approved, with approval being effective the first day of the calendar quarter that is at least 1 month after the date of approval. For example, if the application is approved between March 2nd and June 1st, the private plan will become effective July 1st. If your private plan is not able to be approved, the email message will include a reason and any requests for documentation. Please note, Connecticut Paid Leave generally does not deny a private plan without first asking for additional information or missing documentation. We will update the status of your application and will ask a question or send a request for documentation through that email. There are some common issues that Connecticut Paid Leave sees in private plan applications that you should be sure that you avoid. First, Please ensure that you are uploading the correct documents to the application. That means the completed plain language guide and the policy or plan document, along with a surety bond if the plan is self-insured. Please do not upload the incomplete template version of the plain language guide. Please also do not upload marketing materials or flyers or brochures that only provide a general overview of Connecticut paid leave. Second, make sure that you are holding a vote for each organization that has its own Connecticut employees. Each entity with its own FEIN should be treated as a separate vote and application, even if it is a wholly owned subsidiary of another entity. Please also ensure that benefits provided under the program equal or exceed those required by the public program. Employers may want to create a plan that mirrors other states' paid leave programs in order to provide uniformity across their employee population in various states. However, be aware that each state's program is different, with various factors that may be more generous or less generous than the Connecticut program. For example, while some states may offer benefits for a greater duration of time, they may pay a lower benefit percentage, or may have a waiting period before benefits begin, or they may not cover all of the same leave reasons. You should be very careful when establishing your private plan so that you review each element of the plan design. Finally, please be aware that paid leave applications are approved on a 3-year basis. If approved for a private plan, it is your responsibility as an employer to ensure that the coverage is in place for the duration of the approval period. Thank you for watching this presentation. If you ever have any questions about the Connecticut Paid Leave Program, please visit our website, ctpaidleave.org.